Okay, so we're diving into a job title today that might sound, I'll be honest, a tad bit dull on the surface. Human Resources Assistant. You hear that, and you're probably picturing mountains of paperwork, right?
Right, maybe fetching coffee, filing endlessly, but that's so far from the reality.
It's actually a role that's absolutely vital, like the engine room of a well-oiled machine. We're talking about the folks who keep the entire HR department humming. And to guide us, we're tapping into some fantastic resources from RoleCatcher. Think of it as our cheat sheet, whether you're just HR curious or about to polish up that resume.
Love that. And what's so interesting is that RoleCatcher dives right into the thick of it. They don't beat around the bush. Their career guide really gets into the nitty-gritty.
So no sugarcoating here. We're getting real down in the trenches.
Exactly. And one of the first things they emphasize is the sheer variety in this role. One minute you might be, as they put it, scanning CVs, and the next you're coordinating onboarding for new hires.
See, you're not just pushing paper. You're the first impression, the welcoming committee, the efficiency expert talk about wearing many hats.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. You're not siloed into one tiny aspect of HR. You're dealing with people, processes, even a bit of tech, all while making sure the HR department runs like a well-oiled machine.
And that's no small feat. Because let's be real, HR touches every single person in a company. RoleCatcher even highlights that it's typically an office-based role, usually part of a larger HR team, so you're right in the heart of it all.
You are. And that brings us to the skill set, which I have to say is where things get really interesting because we're not just talking about HR-specific skills here.
Oh, elaborate on that. What are we talking about then?
Active listening, reading comprehension, speaking clearly, these are foundational skills for any job, any career path, really.
Absolutely. Especially in a role where you're constantly interacting with people, whether they're potential new hires or current employees going through, who knows what. You've got to be able to communicate effectively.
And on that note, RoleCatcher brings up technology advances as a major trend, which is spot on. HR isn't what it used to be.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's way more data-driven, tech-savvy, which I imagine puts even more emphasis on those communication skills you mentioned. I mean, think about it. You're explaining new software, navigating digital platforms. It's a whole other layer.
It is. And you're doing all of that while being the human face of HR, which is a pretty amazing balancing act when you think about it.
Right. It's like you're the bridge between the human side and the data side of a company, all while making sure everyone feels heard and things run smoothly.
And that's precisely why this role is so crucial, even though it might seem like a behind-the-scenes kind of gig.
Totally. It's the backbone of a thriving workplace, and the skills you gain are valuable no matter where your career takes you.
Absolutely. And speaking of skills, let's unpack what RoleCatcher highlights as the must-haves for an HR assistant. They have some really interesting insights there.
Okay, let's get into it. What are we talking about here?
Well, they emphasize a really interesting blend of what we traditionally consider hard and soft skills.
Okay, give me an example.
So obviously you need that organizational prowess,
Right.
right? The ability to manage files, maybe work with databases, all that good stuff.
Right, that's a given. You're dealing with sensitive information, employee records. It's got to be organized.
Exactly. But then they layer on top of that the need for exceptional communication and interpersonal skills, which, when you think about it, is crucial in HR.
Totally. You're the liaison between employees and management. You're often the first point of contact for new hires. You're dealing with sensitive situations sometimes. You've got to be able to navigate all that with empathy and professionalism.
Exactly. And that's
Yeah.
something that RoleCatcher really emphasizes, this idea that you're not just an administrator, you're a people person.
Right. It's about building relationships, fostering a positive work environment, all while making sure the nuts and bolts of HR are running smoothly.
And that's no small feat, which is why they dedicate an entire section to the importance of communication skills.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What does RoleCatcher have to say about communication in the context of an HR assistant role?
Well, they actually break it down into some really practical components. For example, they talk about active listening.
Which is so key. I mean, think about it. If you're dealing with an employee who's having a problem, you can't just be waiting for your turn to speak. You've got to really hear them.
Precisely. And that's something they emphasize, that it's not just about listening to respond, it's about listening to understand.
Which I'm sure can be a challenge sometimes. Emotions can run high, especially in a work environment.
For sure. But that's what makes it such a valuable skill to have, not just in HR, but in any area of life, really.
Absolutely. So it sounds like active listening is a big one. What else does RoleCatcher highlight?
They also talk about the importance of clear and concise communication. both written and verbal.
Makes sense. You're probably writing emails, maybe drafting memos, creating presentations, all sorts of things.
Exactly. And you need to be able to get your point across in a way that's easy to understand, especially when you're dealing with things like company policies, benefits information, things that can sometimes be a little bit, well, let's just say, not the most exciting to read about.
I hear you. So it's about taking potentially dry information and presenting it in a way that's engaging and accessible.
Exactly. And doing it in a way that reflects the company culture and values, which, again, speaks to the importance of those soft skills.
Right. You're not just an information dispenser, you're a brand ambassador in a way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got active listening, clear communication. Anything else?
Well, they also touch on the importance of nonverbal communication.
Oh, interesting. So body language, tone of voice, all that.
Exactly. Because let's be real, how you say something can be just as important as what you say, especially when you're dealing with sensitive situations.
100%. Like, if you're delivering difficult feedback to an employee, your body language and tone of voice need to match the message you're trying to convey.
Right. It's about being aware of those nonverbal cues and using them to your advantage to build rapport and trust.
This is fascinating stuff. I'm really starting to see how communication is like the bedrock of this whole role.
It really is. And you know, it's interesting because RoleCatcher doesn't just talk about these skills in isolation. They actually connect them to the bigger picture of company culture and employee experience.
That's so important. Because at the end of the day, HR is all about people, right?
Exactly. It's about creating a positive and productive work environment where everyone feels valued and respected.
And that starts with communication, with really listening to employees, understanding their needs, and communicating effectively at all levels.
It does. And it's something that RoleCatcher really hits home. This idea that HR isn't just about processes and paperwork. It's about people.
Which makes those communication skills even more valuable, right? Because you're the one who's often responsible for shaping that company culture.
Yeah. Exactly. You're the one who sets the tone, who helps create a welcoming and inclusive environment, and who makes sure that everyone feels heard.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is, but it's also incredibly rewarding. And, you know, it's interesting because RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from the challenges of this role. They actually address them head on.
Oh, I like that. So they're keeping it real.
They are. For example, they talk about the fact that HR can sometimes be a bit of a thankless job.
Oh, I'm sure. You're dealing with people's problems all day long. You're often the bearer of bad news.
Exactly. And you're not always going to be everyone's favorite person.
That's true of any job, honestly, but especially one where you're dealing with people's livelihoods.
Right. But they also talk about the incredible rewards of this role, the satisfaction that comes from helping people, from making a real difference in their work lives.
I can see that being really fulfilling, knowing that you're contributing to a positive and supportive work environment.
Exactly. And that's something that RoleCatcher really emphasizes. This idea that while it's not always easy, being an HR assistant is a deeply rewarding career path.
It's good to hear that. Because sometimes, we can get so caught up in the day-to-day grind that we forget about the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And that's why I appreciate that RoleCatcher takes the time to highlight both the challenges and the rewards.
Okay, so we've talked about the variety of tasks, the blend of skills, the importance of communication, and the overall impact this role has on company culture. Anything else we should touch on before we move on?
Well, they do have a really interesting section on career progression, which I think is worth exploring.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that because it's one thing to be an assistant, but where do you go from there?
Right, and that's something that RoleCatcher does a great job of outlining.
Okay, so tell me, what are some of the potential career paths for an HR assistant?
Well, they highlight a few different routes you could take.
Okay, like what?
For example, you could move up within the HR department, maybe becoming an HR generalist, or specializing in a particular area like recruitment or training.
Makes sense. You're already in the thick of it, gaining experience, building relationships.
Exactly. And as you gain more experience and knowledge, you can take on more responsibility and move into a more senior role.
So it's like a natural progression. You start as an assistant, learn the ropes, and then work your way up.
Precisely. And they even provide some examples of what those different career paths might look like.
Ooh, I like that. concrete examples always help.
Right. So, for example, they talk about how an HR assistant might move into a role like an HR specialist, focusing on areas like talent acquisition or employee relations.
Okay, so more specialized roles within HR.
Exactly. And they even have a section on what those roles might entail, what kind of skills and experience you would need, and what the salary potential is.
Very cool. So they're not just telling you about the possibilities, they're giving you the roadmap.
They are. And I think that's so valuable because it gives people a sense of direction and helps them to see the potential growth within this field.
It's like that saying, a goal without a plan is just a wish.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher is providing the plan, which is incredibly empowering for anyone who's considering this career path.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the variety of tasks, the blend of skills, the importance of communication, the impact on company culture, and even the potential career paths. What's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the role of an HR assistant is so much more than meets the eye. It's a challenging yet incredibly rewarding career path that offers a surprising amount of variety, growth potential, and the opportunity to make a real impact within an organization.
Beautifully said. And if you're someone who thrives in a fast-paced environment, enjoys working with people, and wants a job where you can truly make a difference, then this might just be the perfect fit for you.
I couldn't agree more. And, you know, what's great is that RoleCatcher doesn't just stop at providing information. They also offer some really practical tools and resources to help job seekers land their dream HR role.
Oh, perfect. Let's dive into those tools because I'm all about actionable advice. Tell me everything.
Well, first of all, they have this amazing resume builder.
Wait, hold up. A resume builder, as in it helps you create a resume.
Yep. It's like having a professional resume writer at your fingertips.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I mean, resumes can be such a pain to create, am I right? You're constantly second-guessing yourself, wondering if you're using the right keywords, if the formatting is good.
Tell me about it. It's a total time suck, and it can be so stressful.
Right, and the last thing you want is for your resume to end up in the no pile just because of some silly formatting issue or because you didn't use the right industry jargon.
Exactly. And that's where this resume builder comes in. It basically walks you through the whole process step by step.
Okay, so how does it work?
Well, you start by inputting your information, you know, your work history, your education, your skills, all that good stuff.
Okay, the basics.
Right. And then the really cool part is that it has these built-in templates that are specifically designed for HR roles.
Oh, that's smart, because you want your resume to be tailored to the specific industry and job you're applying for.
Exactly. So the templates will automatically format your resume in a way that's visually appealing and easy for recruiters to read.
I love that. Because let's be real, no one wants to read a cluttered, confusing resume. First impressions matter.
They do, and that's something that this resume builder really helps with. It makes sure that your resume is professional, polished, and easy on the eyes.
Okay, so it helps with formatting and templates. Anything else?
Yeah, it also has this really cool feature that analyzes your resume for keywords.
Okay, tell me more about that. Because I've heard a lot about keywords, but I'm not entirely sure I understand what they are or why they're so important.
Sure. So basically, keywords are specific words or phrases that recruiters and hiring managers use when they're searching for candidates online.
Oh, so it's like SEO for your resume.
Exactly. So if you're applying for an HR assistant role, you'll want to make sure that your resume includes relevant keywords like employee relations, onboarding, benefits administration, things like that.
Okay, that makes sense. So this tool helps you figure out what those keywords are.
It does. It actually scans your resume and identifies any missing keywords that might be relevant to the types of jobs you're applying for.
That's amazing. Talk about taking the guesswork out of it. Because I would have no idea what keywords to use. I'd just be throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Right. It takes all the guesswork out of it.
This is incredible. So you've got your resume sorted. What else does RoleCatcher offer?
Well, they also have a fantastic interview prep section.
Oh, tell me everything. Because interviews are the worst, am I right?
The worst.
Like, even if you know you're qualified, even if you have all the skills and experience, there's just something about that interview process that's so nerve-wracking.
Totally. It's like all of a sudden you forget how to speak properly. You start rambling. You get flustered.
I know, right? And then you walk out of the interview and you're like, wait, why did I say that? Or I should have mentioned this. It's the worst.
Absolute worst. But luckily, RoleCatcher has our backs.
Okay, good. So tell me, how does their interview prep section work? What's so special about it?
Well, for starters, it has a massive database of common interview questions.
Okay, cool. So I can practice my answers beforehand.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really cool. The questions aren't just general interview questions, they're actually categorized by industry and job title.
Oh, that's smart. So if I'm applying for an HR assistant role, I can practice answering questions that are specific to that role.
Exactly. They have questions like, tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult employee, or how would you handle a situation where an employee came to you with a confidential issue?
Wow, those are really specific. And I bet those are the kinds of questions that really trip people up in interviews.
They are. Because they require you to think on your feet and demonstrate that you can handle those tricky situations that are common in HR.
This is amazing.
Hmm.
So not only do they give you the questions, but I'm assuming they also provide guidance on how to answer them.
They do. They actually provide sample answers for each question.
Oh, wow. That's so helpful. Because sometimes, you read a question, you're like, I have no idea what they're looking for here.
Right. Like, what's the right answer?
Exactly. But this gives you a starting point, a framework to work with.
It does. And it also helps you to structure your answers in a way that's clear, concise, and impactful.
I love that. It's like having your own personal interview coach right there in your pocket.
Precisely. And you know what else is really cool about their interview prep section?
Tell me.
They also have this feature where you can record yourself answering the questions.
Wait, seriously? So I can watch myself back and cringe?
Well, you can if you want, but the idea is that it allows you to identify any areas where you need to improve, like your body language or your tone of voice.
Oh, that's so smart. Because sometimes we don't even realize how we're coming across until we see ourselves from someone else's perspective.
Exactly. And it's so much better to catch those things before you're sitting in front of a potential employer.
100%. Okay, this is amazing. So we've got the resume builder, the interview prep section, anything else? Because this is already like a gold mine of resources.
Well, they also have a ton of great articles and blog posts on topics like career advice, job search tips, and industry trends.
Oh, awesome. So it's like a one-stop shop for all things career-related. I'm loving it.
Me too. I'm so impressed with RoleCatcher. It's clear that they've really thought about what job seekers need, and they've gone above and beyond to provide it.
I couldn't agree more.
No.
And it's so refreshing to see a company that's truly invested in helping people find fulfilling and meaningful work.
It is. And it's interesting because RoleCatcher's mission isn't just about helping individuals. They're also really passionate about helping companies find the best talent.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like a two-way street.
Exactly. They work with both job seekers and employers to make the hiring process smoother, more efficient, and ultimately more successful for everyone involved.
I love that. It's like they're bridging the gap between talent and opportunity.
Okay.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the ins and outs of the HR assistant role. We've explored RoleCatcher's amazing resources, and we've even touched on the bigger picture of how technology is changing the hiring landscape. Is there anything else we should mention before we wrap things up?
Well, they do have a free trial available, so listeners can check it out and see if it's a good fit for them.
Oh, perfect. So no risk involved.
Nope. They can try out all the features, explore the platform, and see if it's something that can help them in their job search.
I love that. I'm always a fan of free trials. It gives you a chance to really get a feel for the product before you commit.
Exactly. And I have a feeling that once people try RoleCatcher, they're going to be hooked.
I have a feeling you're right. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much about the HR assistant role, and I'm so grateful to RoleCatcher for creating such a fantastic resource for job seekers.
It was my pleasure. And it's exciting to think about all the people out there who might discover their passion for HR thanks to platforms like this.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will land their dream HR job thanks to the tips and tools we've shared today.
I hope so. That would be amazing.
It would. Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you found this deep dive helpful and informative. If you're interested in learning more about RoleCatcher, be sure to check out their website. And as always, happy job hunting. It's like having a secret weapon, right?
Yeah.
That extra edge in a world where it feels like everyone's vying for the same opportunities.
Exactly. And it's not just about standing out. It's about finding the right fit.
Which is so important.
It is, because a job might sound great on paper, but if it's not a good match for your skills and personality, you're not going to be happy.
100%. So how does RoleCatcher help with that whole, finding the right fit thing?
Well, remember how we were talking about how HR is becoming increasingly data-driven?
Oh, yeah.
Well, RoleCatcher's platform is like this treasure trove of data-driven insights.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So imagine this. You're polishing up your resume, trying to figure out what skills to highlight for this HR assistant role, right?
Right, because every job description is different. And it's like, do I emphasize my admin experience or my
Right.
volunteer work where I honed my people skills? It's a real dilemma.
It is.
Yeah.
But what if I told you that RoleCatcher has this AI that analyzes job descriptions and tells you exactly what skills and experience employers are looking for?
Wait, what? Hold on. So instead of me agonizing over every single word, this AI does the heavy lifting.
Exactly. It takes all the guesswork out of it.
Okay, that's a game changer. I mean, it's like having a secret decoder ring for job descriptions.
Right. And not only that, but it can also analyze your resume and tell you if you're using the right keywords.
Okay, keywords. Everyone's always talking about keywords, but I feel like no one ever explains what they are or why they're so important.
You're telling me it's like there's a big mystery.
Right. So what's the deal with keywords?
Okay, so basically keywords are these specific words or phrases that recruiters and hiring managers use when they're searching for candidates online.
Oh, so it's like they're typing these words into a search bar, and if my resume doesn't have those words, it's game over.
Pretty much. It's like SEO for your resume.
Okay, that makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
So how do I know what keywords to use? Like, if I'm applying for an HR assistant role, what kind of words should I be sprinkling throughout my resume?
Well, that's where RoleCatcher comes in handy.
Okay, I'm listening.
Their AI analyzes job descriptions and identifies the most common and relevant keywords for that specific role.
So it's like it's reading the minds of the hiring managers.
Kind of. It's
Yeah.
like having a secret weapon in your back pocket.
I love it. Okay, so RoleCatcher helps you tailor your resume, sprinkle in those magical keywords. What else does it do to, really give you that competitive edge?
Let's talk about their interview prep section, because you can have the best resume in the world, but if you don't nail that interview...
It's all for nothing.
Exactly, and interviews can be so nerve-wracking.
Tell me about it. My palms are already sweating just thinking about it.
But don't worry, RoleCatcher has your back.
Okay, good, because I need all the help I can get.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's so special about their interview prep section?
Well, it's not just a list of generic interview questions.
Oh, good, because I've seen those, and they're not always that helpful.
Right. They're too broad.
Exactly. It's like, tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. Like, duh, I know they're going to ask me that, but what do they really want to know?
Exactly. But RoleCatcher takes it a step further. They actually categorize their interview questions by industry and job title.
Oh, that's smart. So I'm not wasting my time practicing answers to questions that are irrelevant to the role I'm applying for.
Precisely. So, for example, if you're applying for an HR assistant role, you'll see questions like, can you describe your experience with HR software? Or how would you handle a situation where an employee came to you with a confidential issue?
Okay, those are really specific. And those sound like questions that you would actually get asked in an HR interview.
Exactly. They're designed to really test your knowledge and skills in the context of that specific role.
I love that. So it's not just about giving you the questions, it's about giving you the right questions.
Exactly. And to help you prepare even further, they actually provide sample answers for each question.
Oh, wow. That's incredibly helpful because sometimes, you read an interview question and you're like, I have no idea what they're looking for here.
Right, like what's the right way to answer that?
Exactly. But this gives you a starting point, a framework to work with.
It does, and it helps you to structure your answers in a way that's clear, concise, and impactful.
Okay, this is amazing. It's like having a personal interview coach in your back pocket.
Precisely. And to really help you get comfortable with the interview process, they even have this feature where you can record yourself answering the questions.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
So I can watch myself back and cringe at all my nervous habits.
Well, you can if you want. But the idea is that it allows you to identify any areas where you need to improve, like your body language, your tone of voice, your pacing.
Oh, that's actually really smart because sometimes we don't even realize how we're coming across until we see ourselves from someone else's perspective.
Exactly. It's like having a bird's eye view of your interview skills.
This is incredible. RoleCatcher has thought of everything. Okay, so we've got the resume builder, the interview prep section. Is there anything else? Because honestly, this is already like a gold mine of resources.
Well, they also have a ton of great articles and blog posts on all sorts of career-related topics.
Okay, like what? Give me the inside scoop.
They have articles on things like how to write a killer cover letter, how to network effectively, how to negotiate a job offer, all sorts of good stuff.
Oh, awesome. So it's like a one-stop shop for all things career-related.
Exactly. They've got you covered from start to finish.
I'm loving it. It's like having a career coach in your back pocket, but without the hefty price tag.
Exactly. It's accessible, it's affordable, and it's packed with valuable information and tools.
RoleCatcher is really knocking it out of the park. I'm so impressed with everything they offer.
Me too. And, what's really great is that they offer a free trial. So listeners can check it out, explore the platform, try out some of the features, all without spending a dime.
Oh, perfect. Because there's nothing worse than feeling like you have to commit to something before you've even had a chance to try it out.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But with RoleCatcher, there's no risk involved.
I love that. So you can test drive it before you buy it.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about how RoleCatcher helps you create a standout resume, how it helps you ace that interview, and how it provides a ton of valuable career advice. But let's zoom out for a second and talk about the bigger picture.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
Because it seems like what RoleCatcher is doing is about so much more than just helping people get jobs, right?
All right. It's about empowering people.
Yes. It's about giving them the tools and resources they need to take control of their careers and achieve their goals.
Absolutely. And it's about leveling the playing field.
Oh, that's a good point. Because not everyone has access to expensive career coaches or knows the ins and outs of the job search process.
Exactly. But RoleCatcher makes that knowledge and those resources accessible to everyone.
I love that. It's like they're democratizing the job search process.
Exactly. And it's interesting because RoleCatcher's mission isn't just about helping individuals find jobs. They're also really passionate about helping companies find the best talent.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like a two-way street.
Exactly. They work with both job seekers and employers to make the hiring process smoother, more efficient, and ultimately more successful for everyone involved.
I love that. It's like they're bridging the gap between talent and opportunity.
Precisely. And I think that's what makes RoleCatcher so special. They're not just a job board, they're a community of job seekers and employers who are all striving to achieve their goals.
I love that. A community of go-getters all supporting each other. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about how RoleCatcher helps you craft the perfect resume, how it helps you ace that interview, how it gives you access to a wealth of career advice, and how it's all part of their larger mission to empower both job seekers and employers. Anything else we should mention before we move on?
I think we've covered just about everything. But I do want to emphasize that RoleCatcher is constantly evolving. They're always adding new features, expanding their resources, and finding new ways to help people succeed.
Oh, I like that. They're not resting on their laurels.
Exactly. They're always striving to be the best resource possible for job seekers and employers.
That's so important in today's rapidly changing job market. You've got to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher is definitely doing that.
Amazing. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling super inspired right now.
Me too.
It's like RoleCatcher has given us this whole new perspective on the job search process.
It has. And it's exciting to think about all the people out there who are going to benefit from their platform.
Absolutely. Okay, so if our listeners are as excited about RoleCatcher as we are, what's the best way for them to learn more?
Well, they can check out their website, of course. They've got tons of great information there, including testimonials from satisfied customers.
Perfect. And I'm assuming they can sign up for that free trial we talked about.
Absolutely. That's the best way to really get a feel for the platform and see how it can help them achieve their career goals.
Amazing. We'll be sure to include a link to their website in the show notes.
Sounds great.
And it's not just about, like, entry-level folks either, right? I mean, even if you're already in HR, thinking about that next step up, RoleCatcher can help.
Absolutely. They have resources for every stage of your career, from those just starting out to seasoned pros.
That's fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about something that really caught my attention when we were researching RoleCatcher. It's not just a one-way street, right? Like, we've been focusing on how it helps job seekers, but employers are using it too.
That's right. RoleCatcher isn't just about helping individuals find jobs. It's about connecting them with the right companies.
Okay, so walk me through that. How does it work from the employer side of things?
Well, companies can actually use RoleCatcher to post job openings, search for candidates, and even manage the entire hiring process.
Wow, so it's like a one-stop shop for all things HR, both for job seekers and employers.
Exactly. And it's really changing the game when it comes to recruitment.
Okay, so how is it changing the game?
Well, traditionally,
Mm.
companies would post a job opening on a job board, wait for the applications to roll in, and then spend hours sifting through resumes.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack sometimes.
Right. And it can be so time consuming, especially for smaller companies that don't have dedicated HR departments.
100%.
Hmm.
And even when you do have an HR department, they're often already swamped with a million other things.
Exactly. But with RoleCatcher, companies can actually target their search based on specific skills, experience levels, and even personality traits.
Oh, wow. So it's like they can filter out the noise and focus on the candidates who are the best fit for the role and for their company culture.
Precisely. It's about finding the right match, not just filling a seat.
That's so important because a bad hire can be costly, both in terms of time and money.
Absolutely. And it can also impact team morale.
100%.
Yeah.
No one wants to work with someone who's not a good fit.
Exactly. But with RoleCatcher, companies can really take a data-driven approach to hiring, which increases their chances of finding those rock star employees who are going to thrive in their organization.
It's like they're taking the guesswork out of hiring.
Exactly. And that's what makes RoleCatcher such a game changer. It's not just a tool, it's a partner. It's there to support both job seekers and employers every step of the way.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so let's bring it all home for our listeners.
Okay, sounds good.
If someone's listening to this right now, maybe they're just starting their job search. Maybe they're thinking about making a career change. What's the one thing you hope they take away from our deep dive into RoleCatcher?
That's easy. Don't just wait for opportunities to come to you. Go out and create them. And RoleCatcher is the ultimate tool to help you do just that.
I love that. So empowering. It's like that saying, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher helps you prepare for and connect with those opportunities.
Beautifully said. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you today. I feel like I've learned so much about RoleCatcher, and I'm so excited to see how it continues to shape the future of work.
Likewise, I always enjoy our conversations, and I'm thrilled to be able to share these incredible resources with our listeners.
Me too. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this deep dive into RoleCatcher. We hope you found it helpful and informative. And who knows, maybe RoleCatcher will help you land your dream job or find your next star employee. Until next time, happy job hunting.
Happy hunting!